lighting people, there's arguably no more important organization to our beloved lighting industry than the Illuminating Engineering Society. The IES has an impact on lighting people and all people, really. So we're pleased to be joined today by the Director of Education and Standards for the IES, Brienne Musselman, who's going to share some insights into LightFair as well as some present and future looking aspects of what the IES is working on. Brienne, hello, and thank you for joining us today for 5 Big Questions.
Thanks for the invitation, Al. Appreciate it.
So glad you're here, Brienne. I'm in New York City right now. I attended a fantastic and very festive IES event, feeling a little groggy, so I'm glad you're the one answering the questions today and not me. But speaking of New York, LightFair made its triumphant return to New York City last month in May of 2023. You and your group was in charge of the education and conference portion of things at LightFair. So tell me, from that perspective, the conference side of LightFair, how did it go?
It was great. Like all good efforts, collaboration is key. So we had great people from the IES side and the ILD side weighing in on that. The nice thing about the lighting industry, I've said this to you before, is learning never seems to go out of style. So people were engaged, happy to be there, patient with some learning curves. And, I appreciate how transparent everybody was about what they learned, what they wish they would have learned, what excited them, what they'll bring back to their offices. And I think we accomplished what we set out to do.
That's fantastic. And I know that there was a lot of really positive comments that I heard from some of the sessions, from the attendees who attended those sessions. I think we're inviting someone on a 5 Big Questions interview in the coming weeks who was one of your speakers there, who was a first-time speaker. And so anyway, it was really good feedback on that front. So congratulations on the successful conference. Now, you are not just an IES person. You've been with the organization since 2019. But before that, you were a lighting person as an architectural lighting designer for many years, and also a section president in the very strong section of Detroit, Michigan. So when you look at things not just from an IES perspective, but as a lighting person, and you assess this most recent LightFair in New York, what were your thoughts?
Actually, to go back to the previous, I'm glad you mentioned the speaker that you have upcoming, because we had some great new faces in the conference, and I appreciate when people take a chance on educating a new group or learning from a new group. As it relates to LightFair in general, I think LightFair is generally what you make of it yourself. I think when you take some agency over how you experience things and you make the most of networking experiences and the show floor and the conference and learning new things, I don't think that this LightFair was any exception to that. In fact, if anything, I appreciate how engaged people were. I'm glad people came to the IES booth and had a lot of hard questions for us. It's been a tough couple of years. I mean, all too well. And so I love that people were as engaged as they were. Light Advocacy Social was amazing. I think Lighting Sales Stars, where we hosted, a sales competition for some up and coming sales folks. Those type of events are reflective of how diverse we are. It's not just about architectural lighting designers. It's not just about the manufacturers. And so I was happy to see non-exhibiting manufacturers on the show floor and seeing their support in the conference. And I was happy to see the exhibiting manufacturers as engaged as they were. So as a designer, I appreciated the diversity of people at LightFair, and I don't think this year was any different now that I'm on staff.
Well, I've attended most LightFairs since the 1990s, and I've never had a bad LightFair. And certainly it does feel a little different than it did pre-pandemic. But even the 3 LightFairs now since the pandemic, I've had 3 great LightFairs myself for my business. And I think the vibe there is that, like you said, people get out of it what they put in oftentimes. Yep. And when you think about kind of also the pandemic impacted trade organizations, the IES is a standards organization, but obviously there's a large membership portion of that drives kind of the participation of this volunteer army that the IES has enjoyed over the years, as well as just the membership in general. And many trade organizations have suffered dips in membership, including the IES. And if you had a chance, and I guess now you do have a chance to speak to someone who may have left and hasn't yet come back to the IES, or maybe a new member, potential new member, what would you say to him or her to convince him to take a strong look and press that membership join button?
I think that I guess I look at this from 2 different angles. One is just professional growth in general. We've spent a lot of time in front of these screens in front of us over the last few years, and perhaps it became easy to assume that professional growth was something we could resume eventually. And I think eventually is now. And so to the extent that we're able to get back out and gather with each other, I think that that's a big part of membership. I think surrounding yourself with people who make a difference and are a part of the fabric of how a society works, indicative of the two, not all inclusive by any stretch, but major losses the lighting community saw this year, Howard Branson and Ian Ashdown, and they are people who dedicated their entire lives to contributing to IES. And the way that you get access to those people, you learn to be those people, you learn to integrate what they teach and what they know into your own work is by becoming a member and becoming a part of the network that supports that type of career development. And so on the other side of it, on a more individualistic side, we made the lighting science collection of standards free for all members. And so what I love about that is that IES members have the opportunity to have foundational education in vision, physics, color, you name it. The basics of lighting and the science behind all of what we do is available to members at no cost. I think it was a huge shift in how we look at members and what we want to give to them. Additionally, obviously, members have great access to discounts on things like, our LC study group that's upcoming and events and things like that. But um, I I think our membership's a great value for the price, so it's pretty incredible. I added up actually all the educational value, and it's over $1,000 a year that you get access to between the lighting science collection of standards, but then also, and I know you value these, the webinars that we do every month are free. The archives are free for members. So we must have 200 or so webinars now available to members for free. And I mean, what an incredible, library of information.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's a library card that gets you access to all this expert material that you
All
mentioned, as
access.
well as the
Yeah,
exactly and the collegiality and everything else. So certainly lots of benefits there. Thank you for kind of running down that list. And there's more than what
sure.
you said, but in the short time we have, I appreciate you sharing some of those highlights. And Brienne, first time I heard you speak, and I like the way you communicate. You're a straight shooter. You don't put too much fluff on things, and you kind of tell it like it is. And I really enjoyed your presentation at the annual conference last year in 2022. And one of the things you mentioned was that the IES was kind of spreading its influence and collaborating with other organizations, lighting related and also adjacent to lighting. So tell me about some of those efforts in kind of the influence and collaboration with other organizations.
Yeah, I'm glad you appreciate transparency. It's hit or miss, but I think after the restructure and some of what IES has been publicly going through, it's good for us to be clear about what our goals are. And growth was the theme of last year and expansion because we need to be educating adjacent organizations and we need the education of those folks in our own world. So a couple key efforts here. Department of Energy, we're co-hosting a research symposium next spring with them, which combines their research and development symposium and our research symposium together. Really exciting group of people engaged in that. Should be in May of next year, but obviously date to be determined. We've been in close conversations with NALMCO about expanding some of our partnerships on education, including them in the e-learning portal. We recently included the Lighting Agora in the e-learning portal, collaborative of unbelievable lighting people and educators. We are in discussions with IUVA to work on a new GUV standard that's a little bit more applications focused and a little bit more collaborative. So I think we certainly are getting there. We have some additional work to do to pull in those people who don't think they're quite in the field of illumination yet, but they will be probably before we know it.
That's great, great insights there. Wasn't aware of the NAMCO thing. Definitely wasn't aware of
Mhm.
the IES collaboration. I can't wait to learn more about that. That sounds fantastic. And when you consider the annual conference that I mentioned from last year, and we're now, as we record this in the summer of 2023, we're 6 weeks away from August 3rd through 5th, where
Yeah.
lighting people will be converging upon Chicagoland to enjoy the 2023 conference. What should people know about what's going to happen at this upcoming annual conference?
So I love the theme light responsibly because it's a huge undertaking, to be honest. So we have all sorts of experts, and this is what I love about the annual conference. I've loved it since the first year I went, and I was one of those emerging professionals that got sponsored to go when I'm still a designer. And what I love about it is that these are the people who work with these topics every day, all day. It is their life's work. So the IS conference has this concentration of people who are unbelievable experts. And so under that light responsibly theme, we have things to tackle, right? We have got the 5 principles in light pollution. We have environmental responsibility, including embodied carbon, operational carbon, some of these things that you're hearing about. Well, all over the place, LightFair and other places. There's also new technology, right? We have one of our presentations is about measuring scattered light with drones. And so there's certainly something for everybody, but also there's this focus on how do we put our values where our professional work is? How do we make that light responsibly jump where we're paying close attention to some pretty nuanced, difficult discussions like light and human health. And then there are workshops on Wednesday, which is great. There are 3 different workshops to choose from on things like computational design, lighting controls, where you get a 4-hour deep dive with somebody who really is invested in those topics on a professional level. The last, I guess, plug that's exciting to me is that we've been working with the Chicago Architecture Center. So one of the keynotes will be a docent from that group, and in support of The Devil in the White City, which is this true story about the significance of architecture, but also in a murder mystery kind of format. So I'm excited to be in Chicago and back in the Midwest. It should be really fun.
Well, I was excited to go to the annual conference as a lighting person, and also because of the Chicagoland location. But you throw in a murder mystery, and I'm all in. That sounds really exciting, Brienne.
Yeah.
So thank you for the preview on that. And if I may just add one thing, the thing I love about the annual conference is that there's not thousands and thousands of people that attend. There's hundreds of people that attend. So over 3 days, you can have like a nice little chit chat with some experts and some people you don't know from other parts with common interests, and you can really get to know each other on a repetitive basis and build a network of valuable lighting contacts that you wouldn't have met otherwise. So I always valued that part of the annual conference, as well as all the things that you learn while there through the keynotes and the other workshops. So I know you got your work cut out for you in planning and preparing for that. So I'm really grateful, and I know our audience is as well, for getting these updates from you, Brienne. And thank you for joining us today for 5 Big Questions.
You bet. Thanks for the invitation. Appreciate it.
Hey there, we really enjoyed that discussion. We hope that you did as well. Be sure to click that big LED logo next to me, and what that'll do is subscribe you to our YouTube channel so you don't miss the next 5 Big Questions interview. And YouTube subscribers always receive an early preview to the next interview before we even post it on the Inside Lighting website. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.